Welcome back to Java. Thank you kindly for joining me. It's October 22nd, 2025. It is also Wednesday, so Discord day. If you would like to join us for the discussion, starts around 5 o'clock Eastern Time, if you would care to join us. And a special thanks to those of you that put in all of the extra time and work so that we can have that working smoothly. So we've got a lot of turmoil in the trades. We have been ready for what is going on for some time. It's finally beginning to get here. We're still in government shutdown. It's day 22. So we're working from the dark as far as data and a few other points that normally the market uses for a bit of direction. So without this, there is a lot of back and forth. So let's get started with what's going on in the markets. Fear greed meter, we're back into fear territory, not in the extreme session quite yet. I do believe there's more ahead for this. We've got the 10-year yield still below 4%. This is showing the motion of currency flowing into bonds, little bit of safe haven here, but the divergence is gold. We'll talk about that in a moment. We've got relative strength of the dollar going higher again. So as this dollar strengthens, it is going to pressure the markets as well as those safe haven assets. So we can expect those to kind of shift a little bit. We'll talk about what's going on. We've got the daily driver is unease. Through all these data clouds, we've also got the geopolitical issues and earnings. So earnings are really going to be the driver of what traders are looking forward to in this next week, the Mag 7 and all of the larger companies. Now, gold, as they're using the language, plummeted. It stayed above $4,000 an ounce. Now, I'm sure that those of you that are interested in purchasing would wish for it to plummet a little bit more because it only lost a few $100s and it's skyrocketed of late. So, gold and silver pulling back a bit, but they're, in short, this is healthy for their price and they're setting another floor. So it would be something we'll watch gold if it goes back below that 4,000 level and confirms. But as of yet, it's still the buy. So we've got Xi and Trump are supposed to meet next week, but they're kind of waffling on whether that is actually going to happen. So news on that could be the headline drivers that we're looking at. We heard from Governor Waller from the Fed this morning, and he's saying that he backs rate cuts. This is not a surprise coming from him. He's generally been a little more hawkish than this, but as of late is talking about the rate cuts and also in relation to jobs because they're looking at the real jobs market now. We spoke about the divergence that there is, in short, the K-shaped recovery really means that it's driving more to haves and have-nots. So this is kind of what they're beginning to look at is job cuts. We've got defensive war stocks doing very well as they reported, of course. We've been talking about this for a while. They get large government contracts. So aside from the private sector, they're doing very well. So we've got Raytheon and this is Lockheed Martin. Both did very well this morning. So if you've been listening and if you happen to be invested in those, you're doing very well. I personally am not. We've got cat bonds also. I want to talk about those a little bit more. That is short for catastrophe bonds. In short, what those are insurance companies, if you will, that cover things such as the hurricanes and that type of stuff. So they will be the ones that are going to boost the economy and also keep this debt cycle going. So we'll talk about that as well. Again, down here, for those that aren't familiar, if you'd like to know the true inflation numbers, you can take a look at these as opposed to being given the government numbers, which are highly manipulated. I'll leave it that way. So for our calendar today, only hearing from Fed Governor Michael Barr. Tomorrow really is when the data is supposed to be coming in. Initial jobless claims, likely we won't get that, but we might get the existing home sales and then hearing from more Fed Gov. But more of what's driving is we're going to hear more from earnings, the private sector, if you will. And that's what we're going to have to watch as far as traders and the sentiment as well as geopolitical. Now, some market info. OpenAI came out with a direct run at Google. They've got an AI powered web browser called Atlas. Now, in return, Google said it doesn't quite matter because they're never going to get the loyalty that a lot of the Google searchers have. And I tend to agree with that because OpenAI has set themselves up as the um, kind of the AI powered, if you will. Google has their own, and they're not the specialists in the search. If they do, it would be something more than that. So I think we're going to watch a divergence, not just with this, but also with DeepSeek, who is making much more headwind on the kind of trimmed down versions, if you will. So with that, we've also got Alibaba from China. They are unveiling their next generation artificial intelligence rivals for ChatGPT 5. So there's a lot moving in this artificial intelligence space at a rapid speed. We'll try to keep up on it, but the larger companies still trying to keep their handholds in it. So we've got a kind of a key in with that is robotics, which is going to pair with this. Amazon, of all companies, is going to replace 500,000 humans for robots. Approximately 75% of their workforce will be automated. So when this happens, it's definitely going to have a key shift in these jobless reports. And we're going to see this going forward. So even though it's not immediate or in this particular quarter or year, we're going to see this forward and it could affect Amazon's price this morning. Now, I do want to mention the gold drop. It almost hit 4,000, but as I said, that's kind of a floor for it at the moment. There was a lot behind it that they did not bring to light. Of course, they never give like all of the news. So, Argentina, on the back of this deal that the United States made with Secretary Bessent, the Argentine peso getting immediately weak, they did liquidate a good portion, apparently, of their gold reserves was portion of this deal. So that also had an effect because when you have to sell that, of course, will depress the price. So let's take a look at what else is going on. Now, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, as I just spoke about, they're upping their guidance as defense orders swell for 2025. Now, I've been saying this for a while. We are in a war and debt economy. So they are looking forward to a lot more war despite all of the peace talks or anything that is going on. They're expecting larger government contracts to continue. So even if it isn't going for an active war, it will be under the guise of keeping the safety. So quite stable in their outlook, and they both went up under that. Now, a word about UK inflation rate. They're saying that it's wonderful because they're forecasting it below 3.8%. This is a really large value, in particular if it's compounded. So UK inflation rates, this is about as low as you're going to see for some time until actual deflation kicks in. Now, United States, I believe the reported inflation rates are much higher than what they are, but will be similar to this very quickly. So until we hit this deflationary spiral, with this inflation will increase. We are in the Meltup phase, I believe. So private equity, also another part of this story. World Bank, mainly backed by the United States, but World Bank partners with private equity in global critical minerals race. So they're now getting into all of these other forms so that they can, in short, manipulate it. The banks use these as assets put on the reserves. They see what's coming forward and they're going to utilize this as an additional source for the kind of all of these talks that are going forward in positioning. We've also got Volkswagen preparing staff for temporary plant closures. Now, this is quite key. There's quite a few of companies actually that are laying off. doing closures and kind of scaling down. Why is Volkswagen so important? Is because they are, in short, one of the largest components of the German economy, and the German economy in turn is one of the largest components and actually the backbone engine, if you will, of the EU. So watching Volkswagen turn and have serious difficulties again is should be very concerning for all of the EU. Now they did make a shift not long back to where they did talk about diversify into weaponry and joining these defense stocks. So that might be what we see going forward. Now, this could be a serious problem, and I want to bring this up. We've got a little bit of overreach going on, and by a little I mean a lot. We've got the US administration ordering banking agencies to root out and identify instances of politically motivated debanking, at the same time raising pressure for banks to scrutinize or potentially sever ties with liberal nonprofit clients. So, this dynamic creates compliance puzzle with no obvious answers. But there's a much larger issue with this. How they will do this, if they are allowed to scrutinize these more uh, internally, if you will. This is a large issue with privacy that is going to, of course, trickle down. And a lot of this is created so that they can bring in this surveillance into the banking sector. Again, we know that they're going to shift to the crypto world, to stable coins and the likes. And when they do, it'll be fully programmable and fully controllable. And if they decide that you're on the wrong side of their political views, you can be cut off. So, a little bit more with this in the analog side, if you will. Trump is now backing a retired Navy SEAL in order to oust Kentucky Representative Massey in the Republican primary. And this is because he has kind of stood opposite ground of Trump in quite a few of the issues that have come up of late, and he didn't like that very much. So if you can rid yourself of your political adversaries that are standing up to you, that we're heading in the wrong direction. So a couple of last things I want to leave you with. Iran's energy crisis, if you can believe this, having an issue, and Iran, of all places, have to shift from oil to solar. Now they're imposing rolling blackouts because the energy shortages are deepening because of the United States sanctions and lack of investment. So no one purchasing their oil, but they will be backstopped. So don't worry about that. But this is not reported very widely in the United States or Western news. We've also got it with these cat bonds that I wanted to talk about. Companies in the business of preparing and recovering from natural disasters. Now, this particular shot is Asheville after a hurricane, but this is going to expand because there is going to be the, for instance, Gaza rebuilding is going to be billions, if not more, in dollars. That is going to require more debt forward. As we require more debt forward, that keeps this Ponzi scheme elevated on an extreme level. So we will see all of this wash out at some point in time. But at this point in time, I just want to show you what we've got going forward. So with this, we do have Discord this evening. Hope to see you there, at least in a little bit of the chat. And until I see you again, my friends, resist.